She walked in the direction of what she wanted, even when she knew it would disappoint other people. She took the chance and walked away from having everything the world told her she should, even though she didn't know where she was going. Why? Because despite checking all the boxes in life, she was miserable. Welcome to What's on Your Plate podcast, a space where we peel back the layers of life, look for what's heavy and what's abundant in our lives as a way to heal, grow, and transform. My name is Sarah, and I am your host here in this space. Andrea Fung is joining the conversation today, and what an amazing conversation it is. The concept of joy seems so simple, yet we completely complicate it by constantly moving away from it to do all the shoulds in life. Andrea is helping us rediscover our purpose and live a life of joy. Her infectious laugh, her bright energy is evidence that she is the perfect person to get us back to what we truly love and what lights us up. Let's dig in. We'll just get the party started here with a brief introduction. So I'm here today with Andrea Fung, former lawyer turned transformational coach and energy healer. She is coming to us with 6 years of experience in the legal sector and has intimate encounters with a wide spectrum of challenges faced by high-achieving professionals and is dedicated to helping ambitious business professionals discover their higher purpose and just live a life guided by joy. This is going to be such
Yes.
a fun conversation. I'm so excited to have you today.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. I'm so excited to be on here to share this wisdom because I feel, with the state of the world at the moment, it is helping people connect to their intuition and helping people understand that, joy is the ultimate compass for life is invaluable. This is a message that needs to get out. So thank you for having me here.
I love the way that you said that. Joy is the compass that we should all be referencing and referring to, not money, not what other people think we should be doing, nothing. Just how do we feel? What is our joy? I just can't wait to dive into this. I want to hear about how you found yourself on this path. What were you doing that you decided was not joyful?
I was a lawyer. So
It sounds awful, honestly. It wouldn't be for me, but
so ultimately, and it's not to say that if you are in a corporate job or if you're an accountant or an investment banker or whatever, that you're going to be automatically unhappy. It's not that. It's about having that alignment, whether you are in the career that is true to who you are, right? So I grew up in a very strict Asian family where you're either a professional or you're nothing at all. So the choices that were given to me as a career were lawyer, engineer, doctor, back someone in finance, or actual science or something like that. And the concept of a coach that isn't a sports coach or even like energy healing, I don't even know what that was. I didn't even know that existed until end of 2020. So it's not like I had any idea of what was actually available. And so it was when I was, working as a lawyer. I had actually quit law twice. The first time I went on a 8 month sabbatical, traveled around the world hoping to find career inspiration, found nothing, and came back. I thought, okay, well, I guess I'll go back to law. That's all I knew. And then the pandemic hit, and when business got slow and I was spending so much more time at home, I came to really realize, wow, I'm absolutely miserable. I have everything. I have this career, I have this glamorous job with good pay, I have this white picket fence life, I go traveling, for a long period of time, amazing social life, great parties, and I am miserable. I feel so empty, and I had no idea where else to look because I have all the things that society is telling me to have: the job, the title, the lavish lifestyle, so to speak. And it's like I didn't know where else to turn. And so in the pit of misery and depression, my best friend pushed me to work with this energy coach that he had worked with before, and I saw the improvements in his mood, in his life, and his behavioral patterns. And so I thought, let's just give it a go. She cleared all my chakras. I didn't even know what chakras were. I just kind of showed up and let her do her thing. And from that point onwards, I actually decided, you know what? If I stay, I know 100% that I'll be miserable. But if I took my chances out there, even though I don't know where I'm going, there's a pretty reasonable, or at least 50% chance that I might hit something that I would like. And so I set off on a journey. And when I decided that I was going to follow only what brought me joy at any given moment, and even if that brought me a lot of pain, even if that allowed, that opened up the pathway to more suffering, to more painful healing that had to be done. If I perceived joy to be at the other end of that, to be on the other side of that, I was going to go for it. And one by one, through synchronistic events, through multiple pivots of various work paths, I found myself here, finally feeling at home in who I am, finally finding my purpose, finally finding work that feels like I was born for this, you know? And that's something that 4 years ago I didn't even know existed. I didn't know what
Ah,
mindset was, what was even personal development, what is energy, you know? So
right,
that's the
right. And
story.
to really lean into what felt uncomfortable too, like to know that you were going to follow the joy, even if it brought you somewhere unpleasant, because that was part of the process. That was part of
Mm,
the healing. And knowing
yes.
that we have to go through those difficult situations or those difficult transformations in order to continue to find that joy and have it be more
Yes.
lasting. That's
Yes.
something that I think a lot of people, that scares them, right? That scares everybody. Then by them, I mean me, by mean just everybody I know, right? It's hard to lean into just the unknown of and when it's uncomfortable at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. And because it is so uncomfortable, and that's why I feel like following your joy is such a great way to go about it, because lots of people are on the healing path because they feel like there's so much stuff that they need to fix, right? And so
Mhm.
it's like, okay, there's this stuff about me that I need to fix. Then it already it comes with that energy of shame. And then having to, in addition to that, having to go through the pain of shedding old identities. And it's just, well, what about you make it easier for yourself? Because there is a reason you feel joyful. Like, and when I mean joy, I mean like deep joy, not that soulless high of having bought a new TV or or got the newest iPhone or something. I don't mean that. I mean true genuine joy, because when you're able to connect with that, it's like you're bringing your inner child to life. And inner children don't always have to be wounded, by the way. They bring a lot of joy, they bring a lot of life. And when you're allowing that life, it to guide you, to be your compass, that's how our soul communicates with us. It's joy. It's the things that make me happy are probably going to be different to the things that make you happy. And that's what makes this unique divine intelligence so interesting. And when you are already feeling that joy, it helps you go through the pain. So for example, when I decided to be a social media influencer, at that time that brought me joy. And when it came to, sourcing clients, I was like, oh my gosh, like the fears of abandonment, the fears of rejection, the fears of being seen, all of those things came up. But in my mind, it's like, okay, this has come up, but doing this thing really makes me happy. So it's worth it to go through that. And the thought of being able to do that day in, day out at that point in time, right, was what carried me through. It was the carrot rather than the stick.
Right. Right. That
Yes.
makes a lot of sense to me because I think it's another thing that there's some misconception about is that even though you do find that soul level type of joy, it doesn't mean that the process to keep it is also going to be always an amazing feeling, right? Like you said, with the social media influencing, like there's a lot of things that really bring up people's just inner fears, or the imposter
Yes.
syndromes, or just all of the negativity that can come with being present in that type of a space. And
Yes.
that part might be uncomfortable, but what it ultimately provides is the
Mm.
joy. And so it's worth it to continue doing that part of the work, even though it isn't the most joyful part, in order to get to the most joyful part.
Yes, yes. And you know, Sarah, like you know that as humans we are hardwired to also evolve and grow. And every single time we follow that joy, it's going to, for us to reach that real level joy that is really true to our essence, it's going to require us to grow out of who we were, to grow out of the habits that we used to have, to grow out of, the ideas and the values and the conditioning that has been imposed on us. And if we were brave enough to keep on pushing, to keep on focusing on, wait, hang on, this feeling of this heart expansion, this warm, beautiful feeling that just spreads tingles all across your body. Once you feel that, you can't unfeel that. You want to keep on feeling that. And if you don't push for that, if you don't follow the path of your truest joy, follow the path that your heart is drawing you to, there's going to be a part of you that's going to feel a bit of regret and a bit of disappointment. And maybe it feels a bit uncomfortable at first, but later down the line, it's going to feel really, really bad because you felt that transmission. You know that there is something out there that is so expansive, and yet you're not reaching for it. And when you're in that limbo stage of, oh, but it's so scary, but oh, it's so good. I want to go get that. So eventually, and for everyone it's different. It's what is what is the tolerance for pain, what is the threshold for you, and each person is different. Some people can't stand it and they're just going to go for it, and some people can hold on to it, can are willing to sit in that discomfort a lot longer until they have absolutely no choice, and then they go for it, and then that part is always more painful, you know.
Right. The longer you wait, right, is definitely going to create more of a painful path to it. But I love the passion
Yes.
that you bring to this topic. I mean, it clearly just radiates from you how important this type of work is to you. And I was going to ask you, like, how people can understand the difference between those smaller insignificant joys, like you said, the TV or the iPhone, with
Mm.
like the soul expanding, the life changing type of joy. But you described it like in the way that your heart expands and the way that your body just responds and activates. And that's what I think people need to hear, because I think sometimes we stifle those types of responses and are almost like embarrassed by them, or we don't want people to think we're too loud, or to have a bigger response than we think we should to something. But that's how you know.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I love how you said about how you feel like this is something that people are afraid of, because it is actually so true on so many fronts, on all the fronts that you've described. And also, I've had clients come to me and they tell me, like, oh, I'm so scared. Like, I put a limit on my happiness and my joy because I'm so afraid that if I feel so high, when I inevitably fall, then the fall is going to feel so bad. And because,
Mm-hmm.
we live in this society where it seems like we always have to earn the right to feel joy, like we have to
Yeah.
deserve it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, how you can't put a money on something like that. You can't put a price on something like that. It's when you feel joy, and it's something that anyone can access at any point. And although it is scary, and in the beginning it is scary, and that's why I think it's so important for people to understand that your joy is a God-given right. It's a birthright. It is your compass towards more joy. And it is the compass, honestly, for you to access your deepest essence. And if you
Yeah.
get a chance to do that, and you get to do it in a happy way, in a way that also allows you to weather all the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of life, because that's part of the process, why would you not want to do that? And then it comes back to, well, it's uncertain, but uncertainty is where magic happens. If everything in life could be projected by your mind, by our limited mind, what's the fun in that?
Right. Yes, I agree with you completely in that. Uncertainty is where we find it, right?
Yes.
Um, I think we're just groomed in this society to often not take those risks towards what is uncertain, stay the path of what is a sure thing and what is predictable in order to feel safe, I suppose. And maybe that
Yes.
does provide that, but it also removes joy.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm all for safety, by the way. Like, I think it's so important for us to feel safe in our bodies and stuff like that. And I completely understand. And again, then I want to bring up this topic of, are you feeling safe from a place of fear, or are you
Mhm.
feeling, or do you want to feel safe from a place of empowerment?
Right. Totally two different things.
Yeah. And with the way the world, has conditioned us or programmed us from the time we were young, from our families, our culture, friends, whatever, it's the feeling of feeling safe. It comes from from the position and the energy of needing to protect and self-preserve. Whereas if you're coming from a place of joy, it's about how are we expanding our capacities? How are we regulating our nervous system so that we can feel safe to receive that next big cash month, or to receive that calling? And it's very much, instead of shrinking, it's an expansion outwards. It's an activation of who we are, an activation of our soul, because this, to expand outwards, means to shine. It means to show to show people that there is a way, to bring people to this movement with you of coming back to themselves. And it's scary. It's really scary, right? Have you ever watched that movie Coach Carter? And there's that really iconic quote by Marianne Williamson, where they say, like, you're not afraid of, you dim your light because you are more afraid of your shine and your light more than anything else. I've totally butchered that sentence, by the way, that quote, but that's what it is. That's ultimately, we're just really afraid of how big we could be. And because higher ups, let's say corporations, corporations that, fear monger and everything, they are also afraid of how bright we can shine. And so lots of, whether it's religion, whether it's corporations or communes or whatever, they keep people down, right? To kind of like make sure that we don't shine, make sure we don't have our independence, because then it's harder to control, harder to sell to, harder to market to, so to speak.
Right, absolutely. Everything you're saying is so right on point. And I think that is for sure why we always just feel so limited in what we
Mm,
can reach for, or we're hesitant to reach for more because we don't feel like we deserve to, or we feel like we're not going to find any success. And the definition of success even is confusing to people, I feel like, because there's this illusion that you should do it perfect every time and that failure is not part of that equation. And actually, it's the most important part of that equation. Um, and if you
yes.
want to call failure switching from being a lawyer to a transformative coach, some people would say that that's like, oh, you failed in the first path of your life. So let's, transition to a different path. And like you, I've changed my professional path many times. And I don't think
Yeah.
that's because I failed at something, it's because I've grown into something bigger and better.
Oh, yes, I totally agree. Um, I would say, because I have actually been asked this question, how do you feel about feeling like, maybe you failed in your first path and now you failed in several other paths to get to where you are now. And I said, like, if that was failure, if I knew that this is where I'm going to be now, I would fail even faster. I
Yes, I
would
love that. That is perfect.
I would drive myself to the bottom even faster and drive
Yes.
myself to the bottom even more if I know that this is where I was going to end up. So you could look at it from from the perspective of, yeah, you're failing forward. Or I love the way you said when you were talking about your transitions, well, you just outgrew it.
Hmm. Right.
And both are right, both. It's just depends on what is the language you want to use, I suppose. When I see people talk about success and failure, it's very binary language, but I guess, this is the language on which how the world works, and everything has a particular label. Everything has to be rooted in duality: good, bad, failure, success, without really looking into the nuances of what that is. I mean, and we can even talk about the definition of success. My gosh, we need to change the definition of success,
Yes.
like
Yes.
desperately.
Well, and two, I think it's also important for people to hear that your joy, the way that you find joy in your life, doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. And you don't need to be validated by anybody else or seek approval for it,
Mm,
which I think is something that we do because of just the need to feel accepted or
mm.
included. But at the end of the day, it has to be your joy, and nobody needs to, you know, approve that in any way for you.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. As you said, like, we are so hardwired to for community, for belonging. And I do believe that, I genuinely do believe that we want that, and we need that to grow. It's part of the expansion. But I do agree with what you said, in that we don't need, our joy is our joy. It's a very unique thing. It's just like, if you like tennis, who cares if someone else agrees with your hobby or your choice of sport? If tennis brings you joy, then go and play tennis for 24/7. No one should ever, no one should ever have a right or opinion over what brings you joy. And when I mean joy, I mean like true genuine joy, not joy like, oh, drinking 2 bottles of Hennessy a day brings me joy. Like, that's not real joy. That's numbing, and
Right.
it's so important to be able to have the discernment to be able to see what exactly is that real joy, person to person. And also, it's also, I think, important to understand that when someone is criticizing the things that bring you joy, genuinely, that it's not a reflection on you, it's a reflection on them. What is it about your pure happiness? Which, by the way, if I meet someone who is so purely happy, it makes me purely happy. It makes me want to share that happy exchange. But then if it triggers other people, then it's like, what is it about someone else's pure happiness is rubbing this person off the wrong way?
Mhm.
Maybe it's an invitation to, or a prompt to maybe introspect. Oh, hey, where in what ways have I not embraced what brings me joy, to the point where I'm projecting on someone else?
Mhm. For sure. I agree with that so much. Um, Jumping back to something that we mentioned just a few minutes ago about just not needing or not seeking validation outside of our own, journey towards joy.
Yes.
In the practical sense, right? How do we navigate that with the people that are closest to us? How did you navigate that when, you transitioned away from a profession that was very much expected of you? Strict Asian upbringing, as you described, of parents who really just kind of had the plan laid out for you prior to you even starting that journey. How did you navigate that type of transition with those closest with you?
With a lot of fear and a lot of crying.
Yeah. Well,
It
thank you for
was,
your
yeah.
honesty in that.
Oh, it was scary because, I've had a stormy relationship with my parents for a long, long time. And to be really honest and to get really vulnerable, even though I had that stormy relationship, there was a part of me deep down that really wanted their approval as well. I really, really wanted their approval. And that was, I think, a big reason why I stayed in law for as long as I did, because, well, number one, it was what I studied, it's what they approve of. And in saying that, if I were to switch, I have to know that I will become successful in that, because my mindset at the time was, I will only gain their validation and approval if I had success in my professional career. And so for me to decide to choose me, to validate me. That
Mhm.
was really scary. It really, really was so scary. But then one day I decided I can't choose them anymore. It was my first step towards choosing me. And I had a very, very difficult conversation. There was a lot of crying. You know, they were saying like, why don't you just do it like part-time? What's this thing about being a social media influencer? This was what, early 2021. You know, you don't know how it's going to go. What about you just do it part-time until you build something up first or something? And you know, what is even a social media influencer? You know, so it's not to them. It's one of the situations where, you know, those parents who say, why don't you get a real job? So
Mhm.
it was one of those situations. And I just said like, I cannot. I was just really honest, really. I think for me, the best way forward is to just be honest, and to be honest with love. And even if you feel them rubbing you up the wrong way, you feel your triggers coming up, it's about staying centered and being in your integrity and speaking your truth with as much love as you can possibly muster at the time. So it was just, I can't do this anymore. I'm miserable. And I know that this is going to make you quite unhappy, but I have to find my way. I have to find and do what makes me happy, because otherwise I will remain miserable. And whether you understand it or not, and I know that you're worried, but this is just what I have to do. And that was how I
Yeah.
navigated that.
Yeah, and that's probably the best it ever could have gone. I mean,
Yeah.
deciding to just choose yourself, like you said. And I know that the disapproval of especially people like parents, it comes from a place of fear, right? Because
Mm,
they're afraid that their children are going to make a choice that limits them in a different way, or
yes.
somehow doesn't allow them to have their best life experience. So, not to defend that in any way, of just having that sort of path written for people already, but breaking away from it and stepping into what your joy is
Mm.
very similar to Jay Shetty's story. I don't know if you're familiar with him and how he was raised, and the expectations sound very similar to what was expected in your family. And he, of course,
Yes.
branched out and is doing a lot of similar work that you are.
Mm, mm. I have read a bit about Jay Shetty's story, and I remember in my first year of personal development, yeah, I listened to, I learned a lot about his quotes, and I, learned more about him, and he has a very, very, very interesting story, and and I love how he also braved the unknown and went onto a number of different paths to find what is the most aligned for him, and is such a huge success now. He is a
For
really big
sure.
inspiration, yeah.
I bring up Jay Shetty just because it's people like yourself and him who really just go against the status quo and are very inspiring to other people to do the same and to know that you can come out on the other side just really finding yourself and reclaiming yourself. And we see that in people like yourself and Jay Shetty who just absolutely have gone the other way. And it's been amazing. It's been amazing for not just their careers and lives, but happiness.
Yes. Oh my gosh. First and foremost, I have to say, like, thank you so much for comparing me to Jay Shetty. I mean, that has got to be the ultimate compliment of a lifetime. I'm gonna be taking that with me till the end of the year, and with that energy moving into 2025. So thank you so much, Sarah. And yes, I do agree. It's it's all I'll say to this is it's worthwhile braving the unknown when the journey is to find who you are. There are
Mhm.
lots of reasons that it's not worth it to brave uncertainty, by the way. And I will be one of the first people to say that. But there are also some things that are just really, really worth going through all that effort, going through, going uphill, downhill, going through the ebbs and flows of everything, going through the pain, going through the suffering, because ultimately the deepest joy is found in the deepest essence of who you are, of who we are, and that is actually a journey. It's worth going for everyone. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just for a select few. It's worth going
Right.
for everyone. Yeah, if you want to live a joyful life, yeah, just steeped in peace, because ultimately isn't that what all of us want? It's just to be rooted in inner peace, rooted in love. And that's why we all do the things that we do. Because we want to feel love, because we want to feel peace, we want to feel happy. It's finding the right path.
I do kind of see you as the female version of Jay Shetty, just because of the things that you have already accomplished and just the similar path and whatnot. So just I'm manifesting that for you for 2025.
Thank you. And when this recording comes out, I am going to be like taking that little clip and replaying it every single day.
Yeah, putting those words in our mind, like really ingraining what we need to hear, I think is so important, whether it is something like that or even just telling ourselves that we don't have to feel limited, right? We don't have to just accept a lackluster life because it's expected of us to walk a certain path and to check all the boxes in a specific order. And, we just don't have to conform to that if it means it makes us joyless.
Yes, absolutely. And this also makes me want to, ask like, how did, I can tell that that being on this podcast and creating this podcast on this platform, it makes you happy. And it's a different kind of joy, when comparing the buying the new iPhone and that joy that bubbles up from within. Like, how did you come to find this path of joy for yourself? Because I'm
Well,
sure
thank you
you
for
brave some
asking.
uncertainty for that.
For sure, for sure. There's been so many just ups and downs and curves in the road the last few years. But I
Mm,
mean, ultimately, the space here evolved from a walk-in eatery and bakery that I once owned. And having conversations in this space that uplift people's stories and help us share things that are transformative and allow us to grow and have us ask ourselves hard questions that maybe
mm,
will change our mind about something in a way that allows us to elevate ourselves.
mm.
That's why What's on Your Plate was created.
That felt so beautiful, honestly, to learn that it started from an eatery and bakery to this. I mean, that is a complete 180 switch as well.
I know, yeah. Yeah, it's a completely different thing, but I mean, I started this platform shortly before that space closed for good, and it's just continued to be a place that I love coming back to and meeting new people and hearing about the gifts that they're bringing to the world. So it's something that just is joyful. Absolutely. Thanks for just reminding me of that.
No, of course, because whenever we come and do on this podcast, it's an energy exchange. And so
Yes.
in addition to me sharing what brings me joy, I love hearing what brings other people joy as well, especially, in this case you that's hosting me. Like, I'm interested to hear your story. I'm interested to hear how you brave uncertainty to get to this point, because I think it's really useful to have, and really helpful to have that point in common as well.
Yes, absolutely. I would agree with you. And there's a lot of just healing that comes from hearing each other's exchange of experiences and saying things out loud that maybe are vulnerable or uncomfortable, getting those thoughts off of our hearts, out of our minds, and put out into the world in a way that lets other people know that they're not the only ones feeling that way, I think
Mm.
is really important.
Yes, and to share that there is a way out, and there is not just one way to do life. There's not just two, three ways to do life. There's so many ways to do life. There's so many ways to heal. There's so many different kinds of mindsets that you could adopt, and it's about finding the one that resonates most with the core of who you are. And
Yes,
you do it by following
absolutely.
what brings you joy.
So that is how you found your healing, is
Mhm.
ultimately leaning into your joy. Is that
Yes.
ultimately what has found how you have found your healing?
I would say that, well, I would say that the first thing is I found my healing by accident. Because I was in that situation where I was just so miserable already. And it was just like, okay, you know what? That's it. I can't do this anymore. So it was like, but in a way, by accident, by force, by accident. And then after that, it was like, yeah, it was through joy, because it was through following what excited me and what made me happy at any given moment. As I followed that path, as I followed each breadcrumb, there will be a new trigger. There will be a new there will be some emotional snag that is going to come up. And then it will be up to me to discern at that point, can I still follow this to a reasonable end? As in, like, is this the end of the road for me, or is there something else that feels more appealing? And so yeah, so that's how I found my healing. Yeah, it is through, firstly, by force, by accident, and then and then through following the breadcrumbs that the universe drops on us. Because when you start on this journey, it's so important to be aware of the synchronicities and to have the
Hmm.
right mindset going forward. The mindset of everything is happening for my highest good. The mindset of how every opportunity or every moment, whatever we perceive it to be good or bad, to be a gift, to be an opportunity for growth, for expansion, for introspection, for reflection. And as we keep doing the healing work, naturally, because we are following what is going to what we perceive to make us happy, we gradually just we raise our vibration, and the more and more synchronistic events are just going to happen, and more of those synchronistic events are going to push you to look deeper, push you to heal at a deeper level, so that you access that deeper connection of who you are.
It all just that all just feels so beautiful. And I am absolutely somebody who does look for those alignments, who does look for those synchronicity types of moments, signs, if you will. Some people may
Yeah.
call them that, or the feeling of an energy transfer from person to person,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
If you're watching for that, if you know to watch for that, I think that leaning into the joy, finding healing that moves you closer to leaning into joy and following joy, I think is more predictable. But if you're not yet to a place where you even have an awareness to look for those types of signs or
Mhm.
synchronicities, what
Mhm.
would you tell people who are just not tuned in yet in their lives? Like, how do people who are not who are not aligned like that yet and may not even know what brings them joy, even start a journey like this?
I can share how I started my journey, because I was exactly that person. Because, I don't, let me know if this resonates with you. If I were to, I've had clients come to me, right? And I say to them, what do you like to do? Or what do you want to do? And they were just like, I don't know. No one's ever asked me that before. Does that resonate with you at all?
Absolutely. It's like the question of what do you do for fun? I have no idea how to have fun. Like, I don't
Yes!
even know what that means.
Well, in this case, podcasting is what's fun for you at this point, right?
Right, right, right. That is the one thing, I guess. But yeah, it is an odd question. Like when somebody asks me, "What do you do for fun?" and it's like I this blank stare, you know? It's like I don't even know what to say because like a lot of other people, there's a disconnection there of getting back to what you referred to earlier, like the inner child, right? It doesn't always have
Yes.
to be a traumatic experience. Getting back to what did that little girl like to do?
Yes.
How do you remember that?
Well, because accessing the inner child can be difficult and traumatic for certain people, you know. So I think the best thing to do, which is what I did, was when I worked with that energy coach in the beginning, she asked me, Andy, I want you to write down a list of 100 things that you would do forever.
Okay.
Yeah, so this was end of 2020. Okay, this was the time where I don't know what coach is, I don't know what energy is. I just show up for sessions and then you do your magic kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what I did, so I wrote down 100 things that I thought at that time that I could do for free for the rest of my life. And the top three was prance around in bikinis on exotic beaches, spreading positive messages. And then automatically, of course, Instagram, right? Social media
Ugh.
influencer route. And obviously, but by the time you hit like number 50 or 60, you're going to start running out of things that you could think about to do for free forever. So then you start writing things like sleeping or doing a doing a
That doesn't
five-step
count?
skit. It does count when you're at that point where you can't find anything more. It could be like, I think one of them, I think for me number 70 was combing my hair, because I just honestly I didn't know what else I could write. So yeah, and so to start off with that, and then to allow yourself to pick the top five or even top 10 if you want. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing. Okay. Like, so for me at the time, I genuinely was happy to just go to a beach in my bikini. At the time, I had such a hot body, and then the pandemic hit. And then I just took beautiful photos of myself, and I felt so happy. And when you feel so happy, you are inspired. And when you feel so happy, you're braver. Do you find that? You're braver. You're more open to things. You're more willing to take the leap into the unknown, just that little
Yeah.
bit more. And so that was what I did. And that's a great starting point for someone who, and at the time, right, I don't know anything about meditation. I don't know anything about energy work. I don't know what mindset is. I don't know what personal development is. I know nothing, like nothing, zero. My idea of spirituality was praying to a white man in the sky to forgive me for my sins, and so
Right.
save me from hell. That's all I know about spirituality. So for anyone who is not attuned, who is just starting out, that is the first place to start. And then look at your list, see what resonates with you, see what you can do first. Maybe it's to go rock climbing for an hour, something like that. And then when you feel that joy, it's like, oh, what else on the list could I do? What else is going to bring me this joy? Maybe it's sleeping for an hour. It could be anything. It just starts small.
Right, right. I love that so much. That is such like tangible, real ways to start exploring that. And I
Mm.
just have to comment too on what you said about like the limited way that you knew about anything in the spiritual realm. The white man in the sky that you tell your sins to is, I mean, how do you, what is that? I mean, how do you even connect with that? So, it is so just distorted, right?
It is.
But that's what we're told, just like everything else in terms of like, this is the way to joy, or not even joy, this is the way to success, right? The white man
Yes.
in the sky is the way to spirituality. And both of those, it's so much more than that, right?
Yes.
We're
Yes.
so
Yes.
limited in what we have been taught, but finding what it is that makes us smile, what it is that we spend an hour doing that makes us happy, and then doing more of those things on a regular basis ultimately will lead us to knowing what our life path is that will bring us joy. It doesn't have to be going into the courtroom every day. If that is what you hate, if that's on the 100 things you would don't want to ever do again list, um,
Yes.
walk the other way.
Yes, absolutely. And when this real thing about it's a real problem, because we have been taught to always seek, and this plays into the whole with what you said earlier on, what you touched on about seeking, about how we want that validation. It's that we are so taught to look outside. Oh, and it's a huge problem because the only way to go forward and to find that happiness is to look within. Because all of us are so different. and I think I said this before earlier on. I said, what is going to make you happy is probably not what is going to make me happy. And that's the beauty of it. Like we don't want all of us to be the exact same person. We want each of us to be our own, to be embodying and expressing our own unique frequency. And if and each
Absolutely.
exactly, it's part of the beauty of diversity. It's what's amazing about humanity. It's the diversity. But if it is rooted in love, that shine is beyond. You know what I mean? Like, people talk about it, because I grew up in a strict Chinese family, but I also grew up in a religious household, Christian religious household. And I was always taught, oh, you will only reach heaven when you're forgiven from all of your sins, and you don't go to hell, and is the land of milk and honey and all of those things. And it's, as you said before, it's so distorted because heaven is now, if we can see it. It's our perspective. It's the narratives and the stories that we tell ourselves. If we are vibrating in Christ consciousness, like true Christ consciousness, not what religion teaches you. If we are vibrating true Christ consciousness, everything, the way we see reality, and everything that is going to be magnetized to that vibration, which will be a vibrational match to that vibration of Christ consciousness, is going to be heaven.
That makes so much sense to me.
Yes, heaven on earth is now. It's you create that heaven. The heaven is you. It's us.
Right? Yeah. But only if you're willing to pursue joy.
Yes, if you're willing to follow the path of joy, to follow the call of your soul, to answer the call, you
Mhm.
will achieve heaven on earth. I promise you.
Love that. Answer the call of your soul. That
Yes.
is such a powerful statement. And I love that you said it. I would love to know more about how you're sharing that with your clients. How are you helping people along this path to be able to hear that call?
So, as we had spoken about how we said, like, it seems like all of us are so disconnected. We are always looking outwards to find this joy, to find this happiness, seeking approval, seeking validation, looking at what other people are doing. So, the work that I do is about bringing them back to themselves. So, it's about noticing what are their thought patterns, what are the behavioral patterns. And so with the work that I do, it's a combination of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is just basically talk therapy, and also energy work. So theta healing, utilizing source energy, inner heart work. So for people who have not much experience in this, in the realm of energy work, I start with the CBT. It's about noticing, what are your thought patterns? How do you think? Why do certain actions feel so bad for you? So the CBT is rooted in principles in principles that psychological problems are based in part on faulty or unhelpful ways of thinking, or learned patterns of behavior that are unhelpful. So one example could be, I'm passing a colleague on the street, I wave at this person, and he doesn't wave back. And immediately I feel incredibly rejected because for some reason I think, oh, he's ignoring me on purpose and he doesn't like me. And from this point onwards, I'm going to distance myself. So how is what that's gonna not gonna make for a good working relationship? Whereas if I can look at it from the perspective of, maybe I could ask what's going on, maybe I'll find out that he actually has a huge presentation that morning, and he's so preoccupied in that he's not aware of even where he is right now. And it's those are the kinds of things that we look into when it comes to cognitive behavioral therapy. When it comes to the energy work, theta healing, utilizing source energy, oh, this is where things get so interesting. Okay, what if I told you, okay, you know how there's all these devices that radiate an electromagnetic wave that we can't see, MRI machines, Bluetooth devices, cell phones, stuff like that. What if I told you that we as humans also emit waves of energy, and that the heart's electromagnetic like field is 5,000 times larger than that of the brain, and it extends like several feet away. And this is literally measured by an ECG. And so when it comes to the theta healing and the quantum healing, it's about raising the general vibration of the human being. So every thought or emotion that we have also has its own vibration. So feelings of I'm not enough, feelings of guilt, feel anything, any thought or emotion that is rooted in shame, guilt, grief, fear, all of that, that is in a lower vibration. Whereas when through theta healing and through the quantum healing, we get to switch those thought beliefs around. We get to release those programs and install new beliefs of I am enough, I am loved, it is safe to be seen, it is safe to be abundantly me. And so as you change those thoughts, you usually gradually raise the vibration of that particular human being in general. And then when you raise that vibration, then according to quantum physics and the law of attraction and the law of resonance, everything that is going to be a vibrational match to your vibration is going to come to you. And that's another reason why following your joy is so important. Because when you're vibrating in joy, you're vibrating in love, you're vibrating in peace, how can the world not bend and give you everything that is a frequency match to all of those things? It's magic, but it's also not. It's science backed.
Right. Yeah. And I just love the power and passion you put into what you're describing. Your energy is so magnetic, and it is just truly what you've been made for. Absolutely. This is your purpose here.
Thank you for seeing me. I'm so passionate about it because I know that it works, and I know that this is what so many of us need. It's time to shift the way we see things. It's time to shift the way we be as human beings. And yeah, it's even when I'm talking about it, like I feel the tingles and I feel the joy. And that's how you know that you're made for this work, right? And yeah, I feel like this is so important. And if there is one contribution that I can give to this earth in this lifetime, it would be this. I want people to understand that you get to live another way. Regardless of what is happening externally in your life, you get to be joy. You get to be you and be safe in that, and know that there is magic in the mundane. Every second of the mundane can be magical if you're attuned enough and if you're willing to take that path of going back to who you are. To me, for example, earlier on I talked about how, just because you're a lawyer or professional doesn't mean that you're unhappy. To some people, happiness is having 5 children. To some people, happiness is doing accounting ledgers. It's different person to person. And I want
Right.
and I want I want people to know that it's okay as well to be different in your joy, because your joy is personal. And if you're so joyful anyway, you wouldn't really care what other people are doing because you're just happy for them. You're happy for each other. Isn't that the kind of world that you want to live in? You're just happy for each other.
That is so perfectly said too. If you are living a joyful life, you are absolutely happy to see other people in their joy. And
Yeah.
when you find yourself in a place where other people are criticizing your joy, they just need help finding their own.
Yeah. And at that point it's kind of like, yeah, let's open the conversation. What's wrong? What is it about this that's rubbing you up the wrong way? In what way do you see what I do or who I am as so wrong to you, to your perception? Because at the end of the day, like, reality is no one's reality is the same. We are just projecting our perceptions on what actually is. Both of us could look at a car crash, and I could be looking at it in one way, and you could look at it in a completely different way. So nothing in reality is objective anyway.
That's so important to remember. Yes.
Yeah, nothing in reality is objective anyway. It's reality is just how you are perceiving it to be. And it is what it is.
This has just been a gorgeous conversation, and I'm so glad that we have spent this time together today. You have so much to contribute, and I'm so glad that you found your way to what was on your heart to do in this world. I'm so glad that you had every experience that you did in order to find yourself here, even the unpleasant ones, because that's part of it, right?
It's part of the process. Lots of people are so focused on only love and light, but you don't get love and light until you get some suffering and darkness. It expands both ways, and it expands bigger and wider both ways. The only way you're going to get to heaven is the more willing you are to bring your roots to hell.
That is a very powerful statement right there. That is much more intentional than what I was gonna say. It says something along the lines of like you have to be broken first, you have to have cracks in order to let the light in type of
Oh, I love
mindset.
that. I love that. I
Yours
believe
was
that.
better.
No, I like both. I like both because both are good for good, they're both good for people at different stages of their life. And based on the different ways that people think, some people resonate with different intentions a bit better.
Yeah.
It just depends. And it's not to say both are right or wrong. It's just what is. It's just different people resonate differently. I like both personally. I like both because the one that you shared, that was very useful for me, when I was going through my initial stages of spiritual awakening. Like, thank you for sharing that. It really brought me back. It reminded me of what I was and who I was to get myself here. And I
Mhm.
send, the past versions of me and also the past versions of you, so much compassion and so much love and so much gratitude because we wouldn't be here without them, you know?
That is absolutely true. I thank you for that. I appreciate just the beautiful energy you're putting out into the world and the way that you just radiate care and compassion. Um, it's just beautiful, and I just love the path that you've walked.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited for the path that you're walking as well. Like, and I'm curious, like what's the planned highlight for 2025 for you?
That's an amazing question. I feel I feel like I'm in one of those pivots, one of those transitions in a
Mm,
lot of ways in life.
yeah.
Um, the podcast is for sure something that will likely remain consistent for me because I do
Mhm.
love it. It's one of the places that I do find joy and
Mm,
connection with people. So, and healing too, as I said.
yes.
So, but beyond that, I think, I think there's just a next chapter. I think there's space for evolving and finding myself again in a lot of ways.
I think that's beautiful. I love that, being human involves a lifetime of soul searching, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's like when we get to a particular stage and then we outgrow that stage or we decide, oh, let's see what else is out there. I think it's really, really beautiful. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. If you were to leave our listeners with some final thoughts today, what would those be?
Oh, this one. Okay, if I were to tune in, I would just say that, as I had mentioned before, joy is the ultimate compass towards your soul. And I want you to understand that regardless of how life turns out or what is thrown in your way at the time, if you are brave enough to follow it, to follow your joy to the very end, eventually, like life, the universe, the God that is you, it is the most supportive path for you. And resources, whether it's money, communities, or any events or whatever it is, opportunities are going to fall into your path to support you in you following your joy. You don't have to struggle to be joyful and to follow your path. Like, so much help and support is going to just pour in ways that you could never fathom, truly, to support you in this path. And that is the journey that is the ultimate journey worth taking towards happiness and inner peace and love. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you just for the wealth of information that you've left here today, for reminding us just to be open and available to source so that we may receive what is meant for us. This
Mm.
conversation has just been beautiful, and I just thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Sarah. I love sharing my joy. I love sharing this energy exchange with you. And yeah, I'm so happy that I could contribute to the vision and mission and also the joy of your platform. Thank you.
Thank you. This was an absolute I'll have what she's having type of experience today. I love it when the people who share this space with me inspire a deep desire to raise the vibrations and get in tune with yourself in a way that leaves you no choice but to choose yourself. Answer the call of your soul. Shift the way we be. Andrea left so much magic and pure joy in this space. I hope you step away from this conversation looking for ways to elevate your own. All ways to connect with Andrea are in the show notes. If you haven't already, please follow both of us with the links included. And be sure to follow and subscribe to this podcast. Share this episode with a friend. Your support and help in spreading the word that this space exists and that the conversations within it are powerful will help them keep coming. Thank you so much for being here. See you again soon.